Welcome back, everybody. Today's deep dive is all about hidden potential.
Yeah. You guys sent in some great excerpts from Adam Grant's book, and
I'm really excited to dig into these.
yeah.
We're going to be talking about talent,
Mm-hmm.
learning,
Yep.
and what to do when you feel stuck.
Sounds good.
So get ready for some inspiring stories and maybe even
Oh, yeah.
a new way of thinking about
Totally.
your own potential.
It's amazing how much we just kind of accept about success,
Right.
without questioning it.
Yeah.
Like so much conventional wisdom around it.
Uh-huh.
And I think this deep dive is really going to challenge some of that
Yeah,
in a good way.
totally.
Yeah.
And speaking of assumptions, let's talk about natural talent.
Oh, yeah.
So Grant opens the book with this crazy story about the Raging Rooks.
Okay.
It's this chess team
Oh, wow.
of kids from Harlem.
Okay.
And they end up competing at the national level thanks to their coach,
Wow.
Maurice Ashley. But what really stood out to me was how it challenges this idea that you either have it or you don't. You know what I mean?
Right, like you're born with it or
Yeah.
you're not. Like
Yeah.
talent is this like
Yeah.
magical predetermined quality.
Yes.
But when you dig into the research,
Mm-hmm.
even those who seem naturally gifted often had some kind of head start.
Okay.
Maybe they had more practice. Maybe they had the right kind of encouragement early on.
Uh-huh.
Maybe they just kind of stumbled onto a field that really worked with their brains.
I see.
It's more about opportunity
Yeah.
and the learning environment than just
Okay.
some innate ability.
And he points to this study in Tennessee that found that kindergarten teachers
Yeah.
had a bigger impact on students' future income
Wow.
than their test scores,
That's why.
which I thought was
Yeah.
really interesting.
Totally.
So maybe instead of focusing on who's a prodigy,
Yeah.
we should be asking, how do we create learning environments
Right.
that benefit everybody?
I think that's a key takeaway from
Yeah.
all this.
Absolutely. And it's not just about like providing resources.
Right.
It's about cultivating character skills.
Yeah.
So Grant argues that things like proactivity and discipline,
Mm.
even just like being a good teammate,
Oh, yeah.
these are actually more predictive of adult income
Okay.
than like fourth grade math scores.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it's funny because I feel like those
Yeah.
proactivity discipline, being a good teammate,
Mm-hmm.
those are often dismissed as soft skills.
You're right. Exactly.
But they're really the foundation for
Yeah.
learning and growing.
Like you can have all the raw talent in the world, but without discipline to practice or the ability to collaborate, the grit to come back from setbacks,
Right.
you're not going to reach your full potential.
And he brings it back to the Raging Rooks.
Oh, cool.
He says when the team was struggling,
Yeah.
the coach didn't focus on like fancy chess strategies or anything. He reminded them about discipline, which is something they had been practicing together for years.
That's awesome.
So it's almost like those character skills became
Yeah.
their secret weapon.
It makes you realize we need to shift our focus from just like identifying talent to actively cultivating these really important skills
Absolutely.
in ourselves and others.
Okay, so
Yeah.
another big idea here is scaffolding.
Scaffolding. Okay.
I love this concept.
Yeah.
It's basically targeted support that helps us learn and grow.
Oh, I like that.
So it can be a mentor or a coach,
Yeah.
even a supportive peer group.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing we all need support at different times.
Yeah. Definitely.
And the right kind of scaffolding can make a huge difference
Totally.
in our learning and what we're able to achieve.
For sure.
And I love this example of how the Raging Rooks coach had his students use cartoons and science fiction stories and even rap songs to teach
That's so cool.
or to share chess techniques with each other.
That's amazing. Like turning it into a more
Yes.
elaborative learning experience instead of just a
Difficult.
solo thing.
It's so cool.
That's a great example of how you can make learning more engaging
Right.
and effective.
Totally.
It's about systems that foster growth,
Uh-huh.
not just like leaving people on their own.
It's like building stronger bootstraps.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
All right, so now let's talk about learning styles.
Okay.
So this part really blew my mind because I used to be convinced
Yeah.
that I was just bad at languages.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just terrible.
Yeah.
And then Grant introduces us to this woman named Sarah Maria,
Okay.
who went from struggling in Spanish to speaking 9 languages fluently,
What?
which is incredible.
No way.
And her story really highlights how limiting it can be to just box ourselves in with beliefs about our learning style.
Like, oh, I'm a visual learner.
Yeah, like I'm a visual learner. I'm not a math person.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And then it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy.
And what's interesting is that Grant points to research that shows that tailoring teaching to specific learning styles
Right.
doesn't actually improve outcomes.
Oh, wow.
So have you ever felt like limited by a belief about your own learning style?
All the time.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we all fall into this trap.
It's a common trap, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what I think Sarah Maria's story really shows us is that it's not about finding the right way to learn.
Yeah.
It's about being willing to push ourselves outside of our
comfort zones.
comfort zones, exactly.
Yeah.
So she intentionally sought out uncomfortable situations
Oh,
to accelerate
that's cool.
her language learning, which is so counterintuitive
Right.
to how we usually approach learning.
It's like she realized discomfort is a sign of
Totally.
growth.
And Grant backs up with research. He cites a meta-analysis
Okay.
of over 70 studies
Yeah.
that found no evidence
Yeah.
that learning styles actually improve outcomes.
That's wild. It really changes how you think about learning.
Totally. So maybe instead of asking, what's my learning style,
Yeah.
we should be asking, how can I embrace discomfort
I love that.
to maximize my learning?
Yes. Yeah.
That's a much better question.
Totally. And this actually connects perfectly to the story of Tadao Ando,
Okay.
who is this self-taught architect
Mm-hmm.
who became famous for designing earthquake-proof buildings.
Wow. Okay.
So super interesting.
Whoa.
And Endo's story is all about embracing imperfection.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so he didn't get caught up in like
Yeah.
trying to make every single detail perfect.
Right.
Instead, he prioritized durability and design
Okay.
and recognized that some imperfections
Yeah.
are not only acceptable,
But can actually enhance
totally
the final product.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. And he actually used the intricate roughness of concrete,
Okay.
which is not normally a material we associate with beauty,
Right.
to create his signature style.
Wow, so he like took a limitation and turned it into an asset?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
That's awesome, right?
Yeah.
And it's a reminder that you don't have to be perfect
Uh-huh.
to be successful.
And actually, Grant argues that perfectionism can be
Oh, yeah.
a roadblock to growth.
Yeah.
It can keep you in this cycle of tunnel vision and risk aversion,
Right.
and you can't see the bigger picture and you can't make progress.
Exactly.
So instead of perfection, maybe we should aim for
Yeah.
like
Perfectly acceptable.
perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
I like that.
And that might mean
Yeah.
prioritizing different things like Ando did with durability and design.
And this concept of like target scores really resonates with me.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more.
So instead of aiming for your best, which can be so
Right.
subjective and elusive,
what?
why not set a specific target that's challenging but achievable?
I love that.
Yeah.
So it's like giving yourself permission to
Yeah.
not be perfect,
Exactly.
but still pushing yourself to grow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it can help us overcome that fear of failure that often holds us back.
What happens when we hit a plateau?
Ooh, good question.
Or we feel like we're just spinning our wheels?
Right.
So Grant introduces us to R.A. Dickey.
Okay.
He was a baseball pitcher who was sent back down to the minors
Uh-huh.
twice
Oh, wow.
before he found success.
Okay.
And what's interesting is he doesn't see it as a failure.
Mm-hmm.
He sees it as a chance to reinvent himself.
I like that.
So he ends up learning to throw a knuckleball,
A knuckleball.
which is a pitch that like
Yeah.
most pitchers avoid because it's so unpredictable.
Right, right.
But for him, it was a chance to turn a perceived weakness into a strength.
It highlights this idea that setbacks and plateaus aren't the end.
Right.
They can actually be opportunities
Yeah.
to turn around,
Oh.
change course,
Yeah.
find a new path to growth.
And sometimes that means going back to basics.
Right.
Or trying something totally different.
Mm-hmm.
And he literally had to relearn how to pitch
That's amazing.
and to stay motivated during those tough times.
Yeah.
He used this really interesting strategy that I think we can all apply to our own lives. He celebrated small wins.
Small wins. I like that.
Yeah. So he tracked his progress by counting how many pitches he could throw without spin.
Nice.
So each one of those was like a tiny victory on his path to mastering this knuckleball.
Small wins are like fuel for your motivation, especially when you feel stuck or discouraged.
Yeah.
It gives you this sense of accomplishment, this momentum that you need,
Right.
and reminds you that progress is possible.
Yeah. And speaking of feeling stuck,
Okay.
there's actually a term for that.
Yeah.
Languishing.
Languishing. Okay.
So Grant describes it as a sense of stagnation without making any real headway.
So small wins can actually be an antidote to languishing.
Totally.
It gives you that little boost of energy, that reminder that you're capable of moving forward.
So next time you're facing a challenge or you feel stuck,
Mm-hmm.
remember R.A. Dickey and his knuckleball?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to retreat, change course, celebrate every small win.
Love it.
All right, now let's talk about the power of community
Oh, cool.
and collaboration.
Yeah.
So Grant tells this really inspiring story about the Golden 13.
Okay.
And they were the first group of black men to become Navy officers in the U.S. Talk about defying the odds.
That's amazing.
So they faced incredible prejudice and systemic barriers, but they succeeded by supporting each other every step of the way.
Oh, wow.
So they studied together.
Yeah.
They coached each other, and they held each other accountable.
That's so cool.
And their story really flips the script on this whole idea of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps.
Right.
It wasn't just about individual effort.
Yeah.
It was about collective upliftment. What are your...
It highlights the fact that we can achieve so much more together than we ever could alone.
Absolutely.
And it makes you wonder, how can we create systems and environments that foster that kind of collective support?
That's such a good question.
It shouldn't be the exception. It should be the norm.
Instead of just focusing on individual achievements, how can we build support systems that empower everyone?
Think about the teams and communities you're a part of.
Yeah.
Are they designed to lift each other up?
That's a great question.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like they literally built stronger bootstraps as a group, you know?
Yeah.
Which leads perfectly into this idea of designing systems for opportunity.
Right.
Like moving beyond just identifying these individual geniuses and creating environments where everyone has a chance to thrive.
And it's not just about fairness.
Right.
It's recognizing that we all benefit when we can unlock that potential.
Imagine if we only focused on people who fit like a very narrow definition of talent. Like how much would we miss out on?
Yeah.
It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack where there's a whole treasure chest waiting to be opened.
And Grant brings up Finland's education system.
Oh, yeah.
Great example.
Yeah.
So they're consistently ranked among the top performers in the world. And one of the key factors is this focus on providing all students with excellent teachers and individualized support.
Right.
Regardless of their background or perceived ability.
It's not just about throwing resources at the problem either.
Right.
Finnish teachers are very well trained and respected professionals. They have a lot of autonomy in the classroom.
That makes sense.
How does that compare to your own education? What were some systems or structures?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm trying to think back.
Yeah.
I think in my experience, there was a lot of emphasis on standardized testing, ranking students.
Yeah.
It felt very much like a sorting hat system.
Totally.
Instead of focusing on individual growth and potential.
It's like we get so fixated on labeling and categorizing. We forget that people can learn and grow.
And those labels can be...
Totally. Grant makes this really compelling argument for redesigning systems like hiring and college admissions, which often overlook hidden potential. So if you think about traditional hiring, it relies so heavily on past performance and credentials and these stressful interviews.
Yes.
And he points out that that can actually perpetuate existing inequalities.
Absolutely.
So if someone hasn't had access to the same opportunities or resources, how can we judge them based on their past achievements?
Right. It's not a fair comparison.
It's like comparing apples and oranges.
And he shares this really incredible story about Jose Hernandez, who was rejected by NASA 11 times.
Wow.
Before finally becoming an astronaut.
That's persistence.
Can you imagine being told no 11 times?
I know, that's amazing.
And still going for it.
That's a perfect example of how those traditional selection systems can miss the mark.
Yeah.
They focus on these really narrow criteria, past achievements.
Yeah.
They overlook potential for growth and adaptation. So instead of just looking at where someone has been, we need to consider where they're going.
Yeah, what's their trajectory?
Exactly. So instead of GPA, What about looking at grade point trajectory?
Okay. Yeah.
How much have they improved
Right.
over time?
I like that.
And instead of stressful interviews,
Yeah.
what about work samples or simulations
That's a good idea.
that actually let people demonstrate their abilities?
In a real world setting.
Yeah.
I love that. That would be so helpful for people who don't shine in a traditional.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So be a talent scout instead of a talent judge.
Oh, I like that.
Instead of looking for people who already check all the boxes, look for individuals with the potential to learn, grow, adapt.
What are some qualities that come to mind when you think about potential?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah.
I think curiosity, willingness to learn, ability to bounce back from setbacks.
Those are good ones.
Those are the things that will lead to long-term success, not just initial achievement.
Absolutely.
And then once we've identified those people, how do we support them?
Right.
That's where scaffolding comes in.
Yes.
Providing the right kind of support at the right time.
And that can take so many forms. Total mentorship, coaching, access to training programs.
Yeah.
Even just creating a culture where it's safe to ask for help.
Absolutely.
And learn from your mistakes.
And Grant gives this great example of how you can build that into a system.
Okay.
So in Finland, they don't just focus on academic skills.
Okay.
They prioritize play and creativity, social emotional development.
I love that.
Which is so different from the pressure cooker environment that we often see here, where kids are so stressed about grades and test scores.
It makes it much more holistic and supportive.
And the results speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Finnish students consistently score high on international assessments.
Okay.
Not just in academics, but in well-being.
Right.
Life satisfaction.
So proof that you don't have to sacrifice well-being for achievement.
You can have both.
You can have both.
And it makes you wonder why more schools don't adopt that approach.
Right. It seems so obvious.
And this principle applies not just to education, but to workplaces and organizations. You know, creating cultures that value performance and well-being can unlock that hidden potential and lead to greater innovation and productivity.
Now, shifting gears a bit,
Okay.
Grant also challenges some assumptions about leadership.
Okay.
So we often think about leaders as people who are charismatic, assertive, vocal.
Right.
But his research suggests that the most effective leaders are actually the ones who are really good at
interesting.
listening, empowering others, and fostering collaboration.
So they don't need to be the loudest voice in the room. They need to create space for everyone to contribute.
And he tells the story of Andrei Sugaret, who's the engineer who led the rescue of those 33 miners.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Trapped underground in Chile.
That was incredible.
It was a really remarkable feat of human ingenuity and resilience.
Yeah, talk about a high-pressure situation.
And Sugaret's leadership was a key factor in their success. So he didn't micromanage. He didn't dictate solutions. Instead, he created this collaborative environment where everyone felt empowered to share their ideas and their expertise.
He recognized that he didn't have all the answers.
Right.
And he actively sought input from all these diverse perspectives. So he created a system where people could connect and share ideas across those traditional hierarchies. It was like this giant brainstorming session with the highest stakes.
That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
And it really shows how a leader can create a system that unlocks collective intelligence.
It really debunks the myth of the lone genius.
Yes.
This idea that innovation only comes from brilliant individuals working in isolation.
The magic happens when you bring people together with different backgrounds and perspectives and skills.
And that's where the real breakthroughs happen.
Totally.
Diversity of thought is so essential for creativity and innovation.
And a key ingredient in fostering this kind of collaboration is psychological safety.
Right.
So that's the feeling that you can speak up, share your ideas, take risks.
Without fear of judgment.
Without fear of judgment.
Right, exactly. Otherwise, people hold back.
Yeah.
They censor themselves.
Yeah.
And the team suffers.
It takes a leader who is really committed to creating that environment of trust and respect.
Yeah, and it's not just about being nice or avoiding conflict.
Right.
It's about being willing to challenge
Yeah.
each other's ideas constructively.
Right.
Engage in healthy debate.
Yeah. which often leads to better solutions.
It's like a muscle. You know, the more we practice these open and honest conversations, the stronger we become as a team.
So how do we create those kinds of environments that foster psychological safety and unlock
that collective intelligence.
Yeah. What does Grant have to say about that?
So Grant doesn't just talk about the importance of these environments. He actually gives us some really actionable strategies.
Okay.
He suggests starting by being more intentional about the questions we ask.
Okay.
So instead of asking, what did you accomplish?
Right.
Maybe we should ask, what are you curious about?
Oh, I like that.
Or what are you working towards?
It's about understanding someone's motivations and aspirations.
Totally.
Rather than just evaluating past performance.
It's like you're opening a window into their potential.
Yes.
Instead of just judging them based on a snapshot in time.
And I love how we can apply this, not just in professional settings, but also in our personal relationships.
Yeah.
Like, instead of asking, did you get that promotion?
Right.
Maybe we could ask, what are you most excited about in your work right now?
Exactly. And it shows that you're genuinely interested in their growth and development, not just their accomplishments.
Okay. So, speaking of growth, Grant also emphasizes the importance of providing feedback and coaching, but not just about pointing out areas for improvement.
Right.
It's about helping people develop their strengths and pursue their passions.
Which ties back to that idea of scaffolding.
Yes.
Providing the right support at the right time.
It's about creating that culture of continuous learning.
Totally. And to foster that growth mindset, Grant suggests celebrating effort and progress, not just outcomes.
I think that's so important, especially in today's world where we're just surrounded by messages about instant success and overnight achievements.
Right. It's easy to get discouraged when you don't see
you feel like a failure.
Immediate results.
But real growth takes time.
Yeah.
It takes effort and a willingness to embrace those setbacks as opportunities.
Totally. And celebrating those small wins along the way can make a huge difference in keeping you motivated.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into hidden potential, I'd love to hear your final thoughts.
Oh, yeah, sure.
What are some of the takeaways that really resonated with you?
I think one thing that really stood out to me was this emphasis on the connection between individual potential and the systems we create. So it's not enough to just focus on developing our own talents and skills. We also have a responsibility to design systems that nurture potential in others.
It's like we're all part of this big
ecosystem, right? Yeah, like the health of the whole system depends on the well-being of every individual.
And that reminds me of that question that Grant asks. Are we judging ourselves or others too harshly?
Oh, yeah, good one.
Based on early performance.
That's such an important question.
It is, right?
Because we tend to put so much emphasis on those early achievements, whether it's grades in school or early career milestones. Even just like our own self-assessment.
And that can create that fixed mindset, that belief that our abilities are predetermined.
Like you're stuck.
And we can't change.
And it can make you give up on yourself or others.
Totally.
Like before you've even started.
Before you've even begun.
To explore what you're really capable of.
It's like closing the book before you've even finished the first chapter.
And it can be especially damaging for people who haven't had access to the same opportunities and resources. So we need to be mindful of the ways that our systems perpetuate inequalities and actively work to create that more level playing field.
So what can we do to challenge this tendency to judge potential based on early performance?
Well, first, we can just be more aware of our own biases.
Okay.
Are we giving everyone a fair chance? Are we considering the context of their experiences, the obstacles they might have faced?
Instead of just looking at past achievements, look for those signs of growth, resilience, a willingness to learn.
Those are the qualities that usually predict long-term success.
Exactly.
And we can design systems that reward those qualities, not just the people who've already excelled.
Create those opportunities for everyone to shine.
Totally. And don't forget the power of celebrating those small wins.
Yes. It's so important.
It's such a simple but effective way to stay motivated.
Yeah.
Keep that growth mindset going.
So as we wrap up today, I encourage you to take a moment,
Yeah.
reflect on your own journey.
What are some small wins that you can celebrate today?
What steps can you take
Yeah.
to create that more supportive and empowering environment?
For yourself and for those around you.
What systems are you a part of
Mm-hmm.
that could be redesigned
Yeah.
to unlock more potential?
These are questions worth thinking about
Yeah,
as you continue to explore your own hidden potential.
this has been such a great conversation.
It has been fun.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And remember, the journey doesn't end here.
Keep learning.
Keep exploring
Keep growing.
and keep striving
Yeah.
to reach your full potential.